Welcome to the BXG Podcast, the podcast where pop culture and nerd culture meet.
You think it's just going to be barbecue sauce?
Because if you actually read those books, it's just gobbledygook.
I really think clothes should be mandatory.
Speaking of Star Wars,
Captain America.
trailer reaction video. I don't have a thing for, I don't have an intro for Ted Lasso. So I could just be Roy Kent.
Yeah,
Just go.
we can just cue a chant. He's there. He's here. He's there. He's every. That's what we need to do.
He's
Yeah.
here. He's there. He's
He's there. Every fucking where Roy Kent.
Man, another I don't know, man. First of all, Ted Lasso. What the fuck with the 50-minute episodes? Calm that shit down.
Yeah,
You're gonna need to calm
yeah. I don't understand that.
Ted. I don't like that. But
Gotta lasso these things in a little bit.
that pained me. Another deep, another episode with some cuts here.
Yeah, it's just deep.
Yeah. So
Some people make fun of this show because it tries to be too much, but I don't understand that.
I don't know. Here's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna
There we go.
straight to
Yeah.
spoilers. If you don't like it, don't at me, bro. You may not like it, but accept it.
We're heading straight to penalty kicks.
So Trent Crimm is going to be writing a book about Richmond. So that's like a fun little season on the brink. Great,
Yeah.
by the way. Angle that's going on. Ted's Ted. They're going to get this hot shot. Is this guy supposed to be a take on somebody? This is also
Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Yeah.
God bless you.
Yeah, it's Zlatan. I am
That's what-
Zlatan.
That's
Yeah.
what
Yeah, he's supposed to be Zlatan.
And he's like
It's pretty accurate.
the guy with the long hair that's super arrogant.
Well, not long hair, but he has it up in the same thing. He literally looks like the guy that is the actor for Zada. Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty accurate.
So they're gonna get him, and Roy Kent has to face Trent Crimm, and he's facing his breakup with Keeley, and there's some deep moments with Rebecca and Keeley about feeling special on the one and all that stuff, and then expectations about yourself with Roy Kent. There's just a lot. But what did
A
you
lot, yeah.
What'd you make of this episode? Ted Lasso.
I mean, I know that this is Jason's biggest saying this is the last season. That's what the last season of what he wants to do with this. What he wants to do with this story. Apple has not confirmed that. I think for me, what they're trying to do is kind of just hit you very hard with a lot of emotional things, realizing that number one, and this is going to get talked about, being an athlete is a short stint. It's a long time for a short stint. You play sports when you're 4 years old, and then you do it for 30 years, like any job, but you retire at 34. Normally, we're not not everybody's Tom Brady, but football players, the average American football player plays 2.5 years. Yeah, and so it's in average NBA players 4 years. It's those things where it's people, we always just think of LeBron playing for 20 years, Kobe playing for 19 years, but that's not the thing.
No, that's not the normal.
And so I feel like this is kind of that take on that where it's life is short too, and I'm not even, but this show's getting deep. It's take in what you have. I mean, appreciate those moments. The first episode was appreciating his son being around, having his kid there. And this is just appreciating the people that you have in general. I think that was kind of the thing. And, the show's called Ted Lasso, but he's not necessarily the focus.
Not always.
Not always. And
It's an ensemble,
but his he's not the focus, but his philosophy is.
Yeah.
And I think that's the important thing of like, looking deeper beyond, going beyond skin deep and looking into that. It's sort of funny. Like we're reading a book in school right now, Wonder. Great book. But like one of the chapters is really like talking about how the main character is like, you got to go into like looking beyond the face of something and seeing the person from within. And I think this show does a really good job of that. So for me, it was a very emotional episode. It can hit you a lot of notes. You said it's a little long. You can definitely cut some things. There are definitely cuttable moments here. But overall, I thought that the storyline with Zava was really interesting. Where, it seems like he's going one direction and he flips a switch. I'm actually pretty stoked to see what happens there. I'm stoked to see how because Jamie just completely flipped his script. Jamie used to be Zava. That was the thing. He was Zava, and now he's Jamie. And like, Jamie's my favorite character on the show. Every time he's there, I just baby. I love him. I think he's actually a really good actor too. I think he like really plays that part. Like even when he's off screen, there was one thing though where he couldn't hold his laughter in the background, and I love that. Like I was like, that's probably the 16th take, but it was so funny. I was losing my mind laughing, and then I like look at Jane and I was like, he can't hold it. Like he can't hold it. And that's just like a Saturday Night Live thing where eventually like it's just so hard to hold your, if somebody's been laughing so much. But we talked a lot about this with like The Last of Us. So like, man, shows have a lot to do, to be better. Ted Lasso is a show that just is going to be Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
It's competing against itself. And that can be good or bad, but it's not trying to be anything different. And if you don't like it being a little sappy, that's okay. But that's what this show is, and I really respect it because this episode in particular was very sappy, very funny, and very this thing. It was very Ted Lasso. And I like to think like 10 years down the road that the term Ted Lasso is just a thing for being like a decent person and respect, you know what I mean? More than it is the name of a thing, because I think that's what this show is more about. So for me, this episode is a Ted Lasso episode that had very little to do with Ted.
Yeah. I think that you hit the nail on the head when you said that this is really, it's about his philosophy. That's really what this show's about. And his kind of like always look on the bright side sort of deal, which is, I don't know, difficult to swallow sometimes, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that something you said was funny, not classically funny, I suppose, but when you said that, you have to look deeper to find the person within. And if I did that, more people would ask me if I'm okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think that's...
I thought it was... yeah. I thought it was interesting. No Nate this episode.
Yeah, no Nate.
I think that's...
He's mentioned.
Sure, he's mentioned as a great gaffer. But that's still the conflict in the background. I did think the whole Zaffa thing is funny because, well, not funny, but it's interesting because that is the route that literally no professional athlete takes.
Right.
We're going to challenge you to be the best version of you to see if you really are what you say you are. When so many players in so many sports, I think basketball is probably the most well known for this, but so many players are built super teams. You know what I mean? And so, she challenges him. And, I can empathize with eating too much asparagus.
I think we all can.
Yeah, it does. It does mess with your pee. But, she challenges him. And he says, I'm gonna play for Richmond. And it is like this great athlete taking on this challenge. It'll be interesting to see how he jives with the team and the culture. And Ted, and it is interesting because there is so much of this show. There's a lot of it that is very personal on a personal level, but this is how sports teams run. Culture is very important. And whoever your manager is, whether it be, a head coach or a manager in soccer, baseball, or a head coach in basketball or football, it a lot of times it comes down to the culture and what's being emphasized. And it's funny to see, I used to coach a little bit of junior high basketball, and it's just funny to see. This show gives me that itch at times.
Oh, yeah. 100%,
because it is establishing a culture is a cool thing, and emphasizing things we're going to do this, this is going to be our calling card sort of deal. And it's just very interesting to see that, because the calling card of AFC Richmond is we're going to play as a team. We're going to lean on each other. And that's very tangible to real world sports. And so it's cool to see them bring that in with the comedy and kind of the personal touches of each of the different characters. It's just such a great, like you said, it competes with itself. There's no other quote unquote comedy that's even close to the level right now of Ted Lasso.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you said. It was just that culture is so important. I mean, I think of my favorite teams ever. And I'm not saying my favorite team is in the general aspect of the 95, 96 schools, but there is yeah. And it's Phil Jackson had a culture on that team, the Zen. And if you read any books by Phil Jackson, it's that. But it's there is that idea of, you root for certain teams just because oh, I like that coach. Yeah. Because of what he does. And I mean, for me personally, I mean, as a Bulls fan growing up, but you've known me actually more past that than anything. It's I'm a Popovich guy.
Sure.
Yeah, I love the Spurs. I love those Tim Duncan Spurs. I mean, there was just a way that those play. And Popovich kind of reminds me of Ted Lasso. A cool guy, does his thing. Ted Lasso's obviously better with the media.
He's a bit of a caricature, right? Ted's a character.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But Popovich had his thing where it's even though he was kind of weird with media and still kind of is, everybody knew it. And everybody was in on that joke. And it's I really love that culture. And you as a Guardian fan, I love character.
Yeah. Tito's a lot.
I mean, I just loved, and there's a reason why that team does well. Mm-hmm. And it's not because they have the most talent on the field. You know what I mean? It's
certainly they have the highest payroll.
Right. It's because they like playing baseball for him. Yeah. I mean, I 100% think that. I mean, there's a reason why those Red Sox teams did well. And it's because every time he gets interviewed, yeah, it's great. I mean, and so it's that effect. I mean, I'm actually getting chill thinking about it. So this is my thing. I want to coach. I want to coach something at some point. As personally, I would like to be an offensive coordinator of a high school football team and just destroy teams. That's my actual gambit in life is that. But that culture of just people perform better when they like what they're around. Mm-hmm. And that's why, everyone picks them to be last in this. I'd be shocked if they finish last. I'd be shocked if that's the route that happens this. But then again, this is this show, and they may just do it because it's well, we actually aren't that good. We have, so, this show is corny. I will 100% say that. But I'm corny. And I like me, Brendan. I like being around me. I've done it for a while. I've done it for 37, almost 38 years. And, yeah. And there's something about that just works. So for me, keep doing what you're doing, Ted Lasso. Both the person and the idea of Ted Lasso. I feel like you could teach a philosophy class in college, and it just is Ted Lasso.